Orr Group celebrates 30 years, we're inviting leaders we've learned from and worked with along the way to share their thoughts with our community. Today, I'm joined by Anna-Marie Harling, Managing Director of Philanthropic Collaboration at Co-Impact, a global collaborative for systems change focused on improving the lives of millions of people around the world. We've been working with Anna-Marie and the team at Co-Impact over the past year to provide strategic and tactical support as they launch their second fund focused on gender equity in the Global South. We're grateful to have Anna-Marie joining us today and proud to be a part of her team. Anna-Marie, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and we'll get right to it. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Craig. It's a pleasure to be part of this.
What is the most challenging thing about your work at Co-Impact?
Wow, big question. So I think so in my role, I obviously lead the work of our philanthropy team. And so I'm very much focused on bringing on new funding partners as well as engaging with those partners once they're on board. So I guess I view challenges, particularly in terms of how they relate to the philanthropic space in general and fundraising in particular. And I think there's some of this aspect of what we're trying to do with the philanthropy sector is really part of why I also really enjoy what we're doing at Co-Impact. We touched on in the introduction, we're very much focused on shifting systems to be more inclusive. So both in terms of gender, but also other intersectional factors like race, class, and caste. But if we look at where funding is going, we know that only 6% of total funding from US foundations is actually allocated to achieving gender equality, and only about 1% of that funding reaches women-led organizations working on the ground. So we're effectively trying to channel more funding into an area that has been just chronically under-resourced in general. So obviously that's a challenge. We're also making very much long-term and significant grants, and our funding partners in return are making long-term and significant commitments to Co-Impact. And I think we can all say, we all know that wealth has been booming and that philanthropic giving has been increasing, but actually most of giving is still very short-term and pretty much under $1 million. While our funding partners and the ones we're seeking to engage with are, although committing at different levels, are generally in multiples of millions over 5 to 10 years. And so that's obviously a very different way of giving for many. And then finally, I guess, there's a lot of talk around decolonizing philanthropy and ensuring philanthropy is trust-based. And at Co-Impact, we really are ensuring that we're listening to, that we're led by the locally rooted organizations that we partner with. They're the ones that have that deep contextual knowledge, the relationships, the political know-how to design these systemic solutions. And our role is to be supportive and not directive of them, knowing that obviously we focus on outcomes in all of that as well. But this means we really, we want to engage and be working with funding partners who really understand and support this approach. And, having worked with philanthropists for many years, as you have, the relationship a person has to their philanthropy can be very personal. And so it can be challenging to fund in a way, in this way. But I do think that engaging with philanthropists who may be at their different stages of their journey in terms of this particular journey is exceptionally fulfilling. So I guess those would be the overall challenges I would highlight.
I think in many ways, you all have gone out to raise money for the hardest thing in the hardest way. But I think you're trying to do and are doing philanthropy in sort of a very different way and sort of very much at the forefront of doing it differently. So with that in mind, when I think about what comes next, where do you see the field going? I'd want to ask you, because you're sort of leading the field to where it's going right now. Where do you think it goes from here?
Yeah, so I'm I think it comes with the role, right? I'm very optimistic and very excited about how philanthropy is evolving and changing. I do think there's obviously been a huge number of downsides of the COVID-19 pandemic, but I think it has actually flipped things slightly and shown how important it is for nonprofit organizations to have access to long-term and flexible funding to be able to really adapt in what are rapidly changing circumstances. And it's actually, I think, shown for many philanthropies, it is actually possible and very beneficial to give in this way. So I'm very hopeful that this is a trend that continues and accelerates over time. I do think as well, the negative side of the pandemic is it has really laid bare, there's extreme and persistent inequalities based on gender, as well as income, as well as race, ethnicity. And we've seen actually these vulnerabilities have real world consequences, social, economic, and health consequences that really hold back individuals. So I'm kind of hopeful that this, not only results in a increasing focus on gender, but also on systemic change that is required to kind of address some of these issues. And then, I think there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about Mackenzie Scott and the kind of the influence that she's having on the overall sector. And she's really shown that you can shift power dynamics and give significantly in a way that is just transformational for organizations. And so I'm really hopeful that this kind of encourages even larger and more flexible giving among philanthropy. And, she's also done it in collaboration with others. And so really kind of encouraging more funders to come together and pool their funding for greater impact.
And I think there's this there's been this thing around big giving can be bad giving, and I think you're right. This has been an example of no, this is the way you're supposed to give money, whether you're giving $100 or $100 million. Give it in this way, which has been fantastic. I mean, we've been together for about a year now, and I'm just curious, how has working with Orr Group impacted your work and the way you approach it?
So, it's been really great to work with you, Craig, and your team. And there's probably a few areas that I'd highlight. I think the first is obviously the additional capacity and expertise to do more outreach and follow up just more efficiently. This has been just hugely helpful as we've been developing and fundraising for the second fund at Co-Impact. Secondly, I just think that it's been a huge value, the rigor that you've brought to our fundraising processes. Our tracking and reporting on the fundraising pipeline is just so comprehensive, and it's a great way for us to share it out with both our board and our team to really kind of demonstrate the progress that we've been making. And last and certainly not least, it's really wonderful to have a thought partner in you and your team, because we're thinking through different strategies with respect to bringing in new funding partners, as well as importantly how we build that engagement with those partners that we have already on board. We are a funder collaborative, so the way we actually engage with our partners in service of our work to advance gender equality is just so crucial in terms of how we achieve that greater impact. So that's, I've just really appreciated that in terms of our collaboration.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of your work, Anna-Marie, and for being with us here today. We wish you continued success and hope we can continue to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Craig.